All right, next up are some other factors that might change our ability or our interest in wanting to do certain activities. So the first one is our family members. So our parents will reinforce behaviors deemed appropriate through their gestures, praise, and rewards, and punish inappropriate behaviors. So in general, parents can encourage children to engage in sedentary or physical activities. Depending on what the parent's situation is, they might say, like, I'm busy right now, go over there and play your video game right now. Or they might say, I'm busy right now, let's sign you up for sports so you can like get out of my hair for this amount of time. So you can go out and do your thing over there while I can do my work. And this can also lead to potentially gendered sport participation, where sometimes, especially like fathers, will put more of these expected gender norms on their sons, for example. And parent involvement and support can lead to a lifetime of participation in physical activity. And so this is really important. If parents see physical activity and your participation in sport as a positive thing, then you're more likely to want to do it and to participate in sport throughout your life. The other interesting thing that happens is that if the parent, we have to think about what the parent's view of exercise is. And so how is your parent promoting exercise? Are they seeing it as a fun thing to do? Like you get to, be part of a team, or are they seeing it as a social thing? Or do they view exercise as like weight loss strictly? And, because that can play an influence, they can play a role in how we ourselves internalize the importance of exercise. Typically, siblings then reinforce those socialization patterns that are set by the parents. So one of my favorite quotes is from one of my professors at Indiana. This is Dave Tanner. He was a swim coach for a lot of years. And he told me one day, someone asked him, what is the best part about being a coach and what is the worst part about being a coach? His answer was, the answer is the same for both. It's that you might make a difference in someone's life. And so the best part about being a coach is that you can make a positive difference in someone's life. The worst part about being a coach is that you could make a negative difference in someone's life where they don't want to do your sport anymore. So coaches have a lot of power here in kids being able to, and adults also being able to stick with a certain sport. So coaches and teachers can introduce children and adolescents to new activities and to stimulate them to learn the skills of the sport. Bad experiences with coaches can lead to aversive relationships with activity and sport in general. Typically, if you look at adults who dislike physical activity, they'll often report that they had poor movement experiences, particularly in physical education classes when they were children. So I was talking to someone the other day who said that they don't like running because their coaches in whatever sport they were in said whenever they did something bad, they had to go run laps. And so now you're seeing you're seeing running as a punishment. So why would you want to run in the future if you're gearing running toward as a punishment? The other thing to consider are, who are the coaches? What are the attributes of the coach? Are they knowledgeable? Are they do they look like you? What do they reinforce? Are they only thinking about perfection all the time, or do they allow you to have control over your learning environment? Are they promoting more of a growth mindset during practice? These kind of things matter because they can influence our interest in wanting to stick with a sport for longer. The other interesting thing is environmental factors. So this is in terms of access, where depending on where you live, a location of a facility, transportation to the facility, and the quality of the facility might be wildly different. And so, out here, it's pretty easy to find a place to surf, obviously. But back in Illinois, where I grew up, it's like there was no way I was going to surf. Of course, I wasn't going to gain those skills. And so, and then, especially in rural communities, you might just have like a gym with a basketball court. You might not have access to other kind of sports or activities. I mean, and the same thing goes for urban environments as well, where you might not be able to travel from like one side of like Chicago to another side of Chicago. Sorry, Chicago and can't escape. And then you have to look at coach availability, the time it takes, like what time of day is practice, can you get to practice, and also the cost of sport. You know, the cost of sport varies greatly from sport to sport, where we have activities like ice hockey or snowboarding that are very expensive. You know, the startup cost of registration, equipment, travel, lessons, and camps, that's pretty high for ice hockey and for skiing and snowboarding, versus things like track and field, where it's like less than $200 to become a track and field athlete. So that's going to play a role in who can even access certain sports. And so yeah, like while someone might have some innate ability to do like skiing or ice hockey, they might not even have access to that, to a facility or to a coach, or the cost of that sport, which will then play a role in what kind of abilities and muscles then develop throughout our lives. Just like I just said, depending on where you live, that's going to play a role in what kind of activities you participate in. If you're living in more of a mountain community, you're more likely to do snowboarding. But if you live near the ocean, you're more likely to do surfing. The interesting thing here in these two examples is that there actually might be a really, really good transfer from one skill to the other, because if you think about it, it's like you're orienting your body in a similar way, that the task is going to be fairly similar. So you can maybe transfer that skill of snowboarding into being able to surf, or vice versa. Another interesting thing is, in terms of access, is how can we make more activities accessible to more people? So like rock climbing, for example, I got really into rock climbing when I lived in Indiana, and surprisingly, because Indiana is not known as like a mountainous area, but I had a really awesome rock climbing gym in Indiana, and it was because I was able to climb an indoor facility that I was able to gain that confidence to be able to then climb outside when we'd go down to Kentucky and go climbing in Kentucky. Now, other things that can also relate to what kind of activities we participate in can be related to race, religion, and ancestry, where certain stereotypes can encourage participation in certain activities over others. Now, people can frame them as positive things or negative things, and I want to be clear here that even though you might see like someone saying, oh, this person is a male, so they're probably going to do really well in like a masculine kind of sport. That's not always the case. Same thing can be true with, if you say like, oh yeah, like my child is like, we have this whole family of football players, or we have this whole family of basketball players. Like, there's basketball players are huge in the Black community, and so of course we're going to promote basketball, but not all Black kids like to play basketball, and that's okay. And so it's really important to consider that some of these stereotypes, they can be really detrimental to certain kids doing certain activities. It can also lead to problems when people from different ethnic groups or racial groups try to do a sport that is typically not participated in from a diverse population. And so this puts excess stress on athletes and can force athletes into the role of being an activist, or having to be a model citizen, being perfect all the time because they have more eyes on them. So this is common all the time. Serena Williams has dealt with this throughout her entire career, where she's like on display all the time. More people have eyes on her over everyone else. And she's gotten a lot of media attention because of that, in positive and negative ways. But also we can think about what kind of activities are culturally important. And so there's different dance that is really culturally important in different populations, in different communities. And so that is really important as well, so that we can continue to develop certain motor skills and motor abilities that are culturally important. I have a link here, and it's in this whole YouTube playlist about the World Eskimo Indian Olympics, where it's promoting physical activity and activities that are culturally important to the Eskimo Indian population. So you can watch that video here. So this is my call to action. We need greater diversity in the kinesiology and kinesiology research in general. As I was trying to find more information on this topic, I was disappointed by what I was able to find. I was also slightly disappointed by this textbook. I was doing most of this chapter based on this textbook, Lifespan and Motor Development, by two women. So they really focused heavily on these gender differences and focused more on how this negatively impacts girls. But the gender stereotypes also play a negative role in boys as well. When boys are told that they have to be a certain way, then that's also problematic for boys too. I also felt like they didn't do a great job of discussing the racial and other cultural aspects of motor development. And so I was really disappointed in this textbook for that. And I can understand why this textbook wasn't very good at addressing those topics. It's because of who is writing it. So I want to encourage all of you to continue to pursue different fields in kinesiology, because we need to have research reflect different populations. As when I was in my master's in exercise physiology, I was one of the very few girls or women in exercise science. And so I made these. This is a little uterus that I made. They were glittery, so all the boys had like glittery uteri on their desks while I went over studies related to women, because none of my professors were talking about research on women. And that was really frustrating for me as a woman in kinesiology, that I wasn't seeing myself reflected in the research. And so there's a lot of more work that we need to do as a field of kinesiology. And I encourage all of you to be that change in this world of kinesiology. The end.